and welcome to That Book Life. These past 2 days have been filled with YA fantasy. I have burned through 2 books and now I'm going to talk about the whole series. But as you can tell from the title, I did finish the Cruel Prince trilogy and I really enjoyed it. Overall, it's a 4-star series for me. I think I gave every single book 4 stars actually. So none stood out 100% as magnificent, but they were all really good. And I finished the last book in the series, Queen of Nothing, in 1 day. So clearly it was very captivating and I really wanted to find out what happens. I guess I'll start with kind of an overview of my thoughts on the whole series, and then I'll dive into it book by book, kind of with some more spoilers, but the overview is just to get you hyped about this and get you wanting to read it. Something I really appreciated about this series is that I really didn't find the books to be very long, and sometimes fantasy can really be stretched out. Some authors like going into the 600, 700, 800 pages. And while that is one way to do it, it's world building and it's interesting, these little 320 page books are just so fast paced, so much is happening every single page. There are more politics and more for you to kind of unravel and understand and grasp. And I really enjoy that. I like having these books mixed in with those longer reads I have. But that being said, there are still so many beautiful moments in the book where it'll feel like it's being stretched out when it comes to character development. So I really think Holly Black did such a fantastic job with these characters throughout the series, because when you put it together, it's like around 900 to 1,000 pages, the whole 3 books together. And in that many pages, you really see these characters transform, become more mature, and just better at, not their jobs, but at their personalities. They become better as themselves. But I guess the best example from that is Cardan, who is the High Prince of Fairy. He's a prince in this fairy world. He gets introduced in the first book right away. He's definitely, I would say, the antagonist in the first book. He is a completely cruel person. I mean, the title is The Cruel Prince, but you definitely shouldn't take that lightly. It is so horrible, the things he does to our protagonist, Jude, who is a mortal girl living in this fairy world. And some of these things are worse than murder. He never murders her. That's not really a spoiler. It's awful. Like, the games they play in this world are so cruel, and I will say in the beginning it was kind of hard to follow along, because as it's repeated throughout the series, especially by Jude, since she is mortal living among these fairies, everything is a game, everything is a strategy. They kind of spin their words because fairies can't lie, so everything they say is 100% the truth. However, there can be another meaning behind their words. But it keeps it so interesting, and that's why I really loved these books and was so captivated by them, because every page something else is happening, and there are so many betrayals throughout the series. Everyone betrays freaking everyone. You don't know who to trust. I really liked that because it kept it, again, interesting, and it wasn't predictable. Well, okay, there was one thing in the last book that almost annoyed me, because I was thinking, you are all such smart characters. I've seen you from the first book. Now we're in the third. How do you not see the answer to this big thing? But I'll get into that when I talk about the last book, Queen of Nothing. I guess another point overall is there are a lot of politics in this series. There is so much happening. There are many kingdoms, there's the land, there's the sea. There are so many rulers and so many names to kind of keep track of, but it is done really well, and it's all very interesting, and I was always intrigued to see how it would play out and who would fight who and all of that good stuff. It isn't very gory at all. Okay, well, actually, To my standards, it's not gory, and I hate horror and blood and all of that. Of course, sometimes it mentions it. They're in this fairy kingdom. There's battling and dueling with the swords. And at one point in the third book, there is a bit of cannibalization with the fairies, but it's super light, honestly. Like, it is YA, so it's not something you should be worried about or hesitant of to go into reading. On that also, it definitely is YA. So on the romance side, I love fantasy romance so much. This is an enemies to lovers romance from book 1 to the end. However, you can so feel the YA-ness of it, if that makes sense. The subtext is steamy and angsty, and there's so much going on and so many feelings underneath kind of the shields that they've both put up and beyond what they're being said. Like, you can definitely read between the lines. There's so much more happening there, if you're older especially, but you won't really read anything beyond kissing or a few touches here and there. But honestly, it adds to the story. It's not necessarily a romance that I would see being very explicit. Just Holly Black does such a great job with it, honestly. I will say though, the tale makes me so uncomfortable. I don't know why, because I've read other like beast romances and it was fine. But my god, when Holly Black talks about like Carden, the main guy, because he's a fairy, he has different features on him other than humans, and he has a tail. And in one of the scenes, she mentions that his tail touches Jude's calf, and I was like, ugh, and I just needed to keep reading on. I don't know why, but picturing that was not fun for me. I can't tell you why, but if you're into that, this book has got it, so you'll enjoy it. Anyway, let's go into the individual books. I don't have Cruel Prince with me. It is at home, as in like my other home. Oh my gosh, it's with my parents because I read it a long time ago, so when I moved, I didn't want to bring it because I already had so many books to bring. But when reading the second book, I was so thankful for the little recaps of what had happened with Jude and her father, Matic, and how she was now in control of Carden. Then I remembered, I had so many memories coming back for me from the first book of all the instances at school when Jude would go look at the stars, when Carden and his friends would terrorize her little romance with Loke, I think that's how you say it, and then how he betrayed her and went with her sister Taryn. In the first book, I hated Taryn so much. I kind of hated her throughout, to be honest. I don't think she really redeemed herself. I didn't love V in the first book, but I thought she had potential. I knew that there were 2 more books after Cruel Prince, so I thought maybe her character could grow. She honestly just wanted the best for her family and for her sisters and wanted them to get the fuck out of this fairy kingdom, which makes a lot of sense. Another thing is, I never really liked the name Jude from the first book. I don't know why. It's not the name I would pick. And I guess my last point on Cruel Prince is I really liked the backstory and how it would flash back sometimes to how they got taken by Matic, how their parents were murdered, and their upbringing in the fairy world. I really think the concept of the whole series was really cool, and the execution was good. So overall, the first book was good. It wasn't my favorite though, but that might also be because I did read both of the next ones in the span of the last 72 hours. So these are fresh in my mind and I know that they're good. Okay, I'm gonna contradict myself on what I just said, but next I read The Wicked King and I've kind of forgotten what specifically this one was about because they all mesh together when they're such quick reads in a series. I forget what happens in which book specifically. I know like the overarching theme or the overarching story. So the majority of the second book is the wedding. I found like so much of it was leading up to the wedding and planning the wedding and everyone being worried about the wedding. And then for some reason, I found it so stupid that they were making Oak and V come from the human world or the mortal world for a stupid wedding. Like, I get it's their sister, But oh my gosh, how can they be so stupid to risk their lives to come for a wedding? They could have gone afterwards to the mortal world to just be like, look, I'm married, and have a cute little family dinner or something. They didn't need to put themselves in danger by going to the fairy world. The wedding was cool. It connects to the third book when, spoiler, Taryn kills Loke, and then there's the big deal, and that's why Jude goes back for the interrogation. But still, I don't know, I didn't find it to be that big of a deal, but everyone in the book, all the characters were making this wedding such a big deal. Also, Loke is a piece of shit, so I'm very, very happy he died. I can't believe Taryn killed him, but the way it was written and kind of how she did it and the argument they were having leading up to it made sense to me. Now I'm getting to the third book, but I just wanted to say, I think Holly Black made this out of character action feel in character because of the justifications behind it. So I thought that was done really well, because it is such a pet peeve of mine when authors make their characters do something that they would never do and they don't give any proof or evidence as to why they didn't, and you're just left here thinking, so this character isn't who I thought they were at all. That being said about Taryn, I also hate her for betraying Jude yet again. She always picks Maddox's side, even though they're supposed to be sticking together because they're twins, but it's so annoying. She claims in the third book she didn't know Maddox was betraying Jude, but I honestly find that to be bullshit, because she knows their father, she knows what he's like. How did she not question it further if it was gonna hurt Jude? But yeah, overall, not too many thoughts on the second book specifically. I liked the character development between Cardan and Jude a lot. We see them kiss once or twice, and I liked I'm gonna say this wrong, the Nikisa, the Nisissa, I liked her story in this as well, because you see all the jealousy with Jude, and it was really interesting. Also, is it in this one? This is the one where Jude gets sent to the sea, and she's there as their, I don't know, servant. Not their servant, but she's there and she's trapped for a month. See, I'm piecing things back together because I'm distinguishing what's in the third book versus what's in the second. So I really did like the second one, although I thought the sea stuff was kind of not pleasant to read about. That makes sense. She was being trapped and tricked and tortured, so of course it wasn't that pleasant, but I thought the pacing was very good. It didn't feel dragged out, but it felt like it had been a long time, and when Jude escaped, she found out it had been a month. So it was done very, very well. I liked that aspect of it. I can't believe this happened in this book. A lot of stuff happens in the second book, actually, but the best by far are Cardan and Jude's kind of character development and how they love each other without saying it. And onto Queen of Nothing. This is so pretty. Now I understand why it's a snake after reading the book, and I'm just gonna start right away with the spoiler. I didn't like the snake part. It was definitely my least favorite. It really, really, really wasn't for me, because I just feel like it's done a lot in fantasy. I read 2 other book series where the main guy turns into a monster and he's like, please kill me if I turn into a monster. So maybe it's just that I recently read stuff like that, so I felt it was reused. The rest of the book I liked. I thought the traveling with Oriana and Maddox while pretending to be Taryn was kind of long. Honestly, that was probably the most dragged out part of the whole series, was Jude being there and them going around camping and Maddox getting ready for battle. It was dragged out, in my opinion. I love that Cardan comes to free her, and the side story with the ghost I really liked, with Garrett. But back to the snake. It was so obvious, because it was repeated so many times near the end. It was so obvious that Cardan wouldn't die if she killed the snake, that the new ruler would kind of rise up from the snake. And they were all like, oh my god, Cardan, how are we gonna save him? Just kill the freaking snake and then you'll kill Cardan. I mean, you'll save Cardan. But yes, that aspect of it, my gosh, why did she make all her characters so stupid for 30 pages? It was incredibly obvious. I got it from the start, and I normally don't get these fantasy things that authors write in because they're complex and there's so much in the world that I forget. So it usually is a shock to me. But when Cardin arose from the snake, I was thinking to myself, yeah, obviously, why didn't all of you assume this earlier? But okay. And since it's the last one, I guess, on redemption, Oriana did not redeem herself at all. I found her annoying throughout the entire book. She deserved a worse fate. Honestly, she could have had a worse fate. Something else also, I don't know if Jude is the smartest girl for putting Madoc in the same world as her family. Why would she want them to be at risk? I know technically he can't do anything bad in the human world, like he's not allowed to hurt anyone, but still, it's iffy. I don't know if I'd put this mass murderer who wants to overrule you in the same mortal world as your family. And last point, I am kind of pissed we didn't find out more about the backstory of Jude's mom, because it was kind of brought up at the campsite. She asks Madoc, like, oh, is that why you killed her, when they're bonding, well, when he thinks he's bonding with Taryn over her killing Loke. She asks, Jude pretending to be Taryn, asks how he killed her mom, but it wasn't explained well. But yes, that is everything from me. I keep changing positions because I check something that's cooking and then I come back. But I really hope you enjoyed my thoughts on the Cruel Prince trilogy. I'm not sure yet if I'm gonna make kind of a video like this about each individual series, or eventually just talk about all the fantasy series I've read, but you'll find out as I post. And I really hope you enjoyed, and have a lovely day and drink lots of water, and bye!